Hello, everybody. This is JJ Hardy with Victory Leadership Coaching here with DB the therapist. By the way, I have to start introducing myself as JJ the coach because he
That's,
told me to. So I'm
that's right, the coach.
JJ the coach. Hey, we're back here on another episode of Warrior Leadership, and today we're going to be talking about goal setting and taking action. So, setting goals. I just watched a video with Denzel Washington, and he said that the difference between a dream and a goal is a plan. And the difference between making that a reality and it turning back into a dream is taking action. If that's not profound, I don't know what is. But I wanted to go ahead and mention that to everybody on here because that's going to set the stage for the entire 30 minutes that we're talking to y'all today. And that's kind of the way that Derek and I talk about this, or DB. That's the way we talk about this. DB the therapist.
DB the therapist, man. Yeah, and the action, man. That's what it is, man. It's sometimes, man, we get in our heads, don't we? When it's time to take action, we overthink, we overanalyze. What do they say? Overanalysis paralysis.
Mm-hmm.
And like you said, man, it's taking that action. And if you fail to plan, then you plan to fail. And many times in life, I think it's a lot of factors that causes somebody to not really plan and not really want to kind of look at that vision, right? Because I've heard people literally tell me stuff like this is like, well, if I don't set a goal, then I won't disappoint myself. Man, what is that? Is that having a warrior mentality, warrior ethos? You know what I mean?
It's not.
And how does that play on a person's self-worth when it comes to goal setting?
Yep. Well, it actually angers me when I hear all of the people that I'm surrounded with say things like, I'm not going to try that. It seems too hard. Or I can't do that. Have you ever looked into what it takes to do that? Or any number of things. And, really the one thing that's holding you back from executing your goal, starting to the process to go out and achieve your goals is what's between your two ears.
Mm-hmm.
Your mind will always play tricks on you.
Right.
And I know this isn't like a theological lesson or anything like that, but honestly speaking, you have forces fighting against you every day. It's what you do to fight back that really makes you. So when I think about goals, I think about putting together a plan, and the action part is inevitable. But what I tell a lot of people, I said, look, if you really think it's that hard, put together a list of everything it takes to get that goal accomplished and figure out what the easiest thing is to do on that list. Because sometimes that first step, it doesn't matter if it's in the right direction or not, is the hardest one to take when it's time for you to take action. Oh, yeah. It doesn't matter what that action is. You can always change course, but take action. You never know until you try.
Right. That's a really good point. The coach, I remember when we just had a conversation recently. We were just before this call, maybe 2 weeks before this call, we were talking about business planning, and you gave me that same pitch. You said, hey, you got to start from the back and work your way forward towards the beginning. Right. And, that I think that's the crucial part of coaching, man, is just hearing that other voice. Right. Because you talked about those voices or those other ways of thinking, that thought pattern. In therapy, we call it the defectiveness schema, right? That's our stinking thinking in some circles, right? And so for you to be, as a coach, coming in and being that other voice for someone, I think that's powerful, man. Just being able to kind of ignite that fire, if you will, and get them going. Because I heard a quote one time. It said 50,000 negative thoughts go through our mind in a day. And I always wonder when I'm working with my clients, like, how many of those thoughts are associated with that defectiveness schema? And so many times I've noticed that those negative thoughts are lining up with that defective esteem. And it usually shows up as like, I'm a loser. I'm not good enough. Nothing I can ever do is right. And so, how are you supposed to move forward on the battlefield of your mind and the battlefield of life, more importantly, if you have that kind of mindset? Like, you hear it all the time, this mantra about, mind over matter, stuff like that. And it's real though, man. And even going back to what you said, you brought up a scriptural aspect or a spiritual aspect is, so a man thinketh, so is he, or a woman. Like, and so we have to understand our mindset means everything. And we're even reading Think and Grow Rich. And as we started to read that, it's the same mantra. And so it is very important, this thinking and how we think about something, and just going again back to goals. If I believe I can accomplish it, and I grab that pen and paper and I write that goal down, then I have something to really shoot for.
Well, I want to bring up something that our audience just got done saying. So hopefully I don't mess up your name. If you're German, it's Werner. If not, it's Werner. But I will say this, Werner. Yes, backwards planning. That's the most crucial part. Just a couple minutes ago, when I was talking about how, and I'll go ahead and show what he had to say there. So Werner said, backwards planning, start with your goal and plan backwards to see what it takes to achieve that goal. And what's important about that is that no matter which route you take, so once you keep the end in mind and you make that list of things that it takes to achieve that goal, even if it's just one or two, doesn't matter where you start, always keep the end in mind. If you're taking action and that final place is where you want to end up, and that action that you're taking, it meets up with that, then you can't go wrong. Even if you make mistakes along the way, which, by the way, it doesn't matter what you do, you will, then the crucial thing to know is that you have to understand not to give up, to course correct, figure out another way to accomplish maybe even the same thing, maybe something different, as long as you keep the end in mind, and execute again. Keep on moving forward, regardless of the direction that you take, to make sure that you're trying to meet your goals. I mean, if they're that important to you, that you shouldn't give up. And oh, by the way, if your goal is to be fit, be fit. Don't give up on yourself. You are important. You can't help anybody in your surroundings unless you take care of yourself first. So whatever is important to you, make sure you're doing that. It's important.
I love that, prioritizing, right? And you think about, Abraham Maslow's hierarchy of needs, man. He talks about, food, shelter, water, getting those things taken care of first. And as you work with people, even in coaching, man, I'm sure it's a process, right? So like, everybody wants to dunk a basketball right away, but it's like, what are the steps to, first of all, grip the basketball right before I can dunk? And so many things in life are that way, where it's a process. And, we want to get ahead of ourselves, but we really need to take a step back. The powerful thing about that, starting from the back example, is interestingly enough, I kind of always do that. Like, how people say you can't see the forest because of the trees? Well, I see the beautiful lake and the lake house, and everybody else sees the trees. And I'm like, look, the tree isn't in your way. Look at this beautiful outcome at the end. And I think what's so powerful about that, and I think it really started when I was younger, man. I was a kid, we talked about it in an introductory, going through poverty and living in certain environments, man. You have to have a vision in your mind's eye of something better, or else you'll be hopeless, right? And I think that's the important thing of a goal and having a vision, is that it inspires you to continue to move forward. And I'm going to say the word is faith. It's that supernatural or spiritual part of our beings where, this belief in something that we can't see, but we hope that we can attain it. And the other thing is like, don't you feel like a superhero when you write something down, and no matter how long it takes, it's like, man, I got there. I'm doing it. Like, I am literally doing the thing that I wrote down and said that I was going to do. How much confidence does that build? And I think where I was going with that is that's that second ladder, that second part of the ladder of hierarchy of needs. That's that self-worth and that self-esteem, JJ, where, you know, I said I was going to do something. I wrote it down. And then let's take it another step. I told my battle buddy about it. And guess what? DB, the therapist, said, hey, JJ, you better get it done, and vice versa, right? And having that is also important when goal setting. And so, yeah, man.
Well, a lot of people don't have it within themselves to understand whether or not it's achievable. So I always recommend the already existing framework, because I don't reinvent the wheel. If there's already a system out there, or if there's already a framework out there, I use it. With a lot of times when you have a lot of things going on, you don't have the mental capacity to handle too much. So if you can break it down into something that's simple, stupid, you should. And so I use SMART goals. Are they specific? Are they measurable? Are they achievable? Are they relevant to what you're trying to achieve? And the other one is time
bound.
Time bound. You're right. Time bound. Mm-hmm. So I've almost got it memorized just because I talk about this all the time. But, you know, the reason that I use that is because, look, you can use that in every step of your backwards planning process. What can I do first? Well, guess what? If it's achievable, if you run it through the SMART framework, it only takes a couple seconds. If you spend too much time on it, it's probably not going to work anyway. But each step of that goal, your goal planning process, you know, just, hey, you know, what should I execute first? Well, what's the easiest? Well, if you can get very specific with what that looks like in your mind, because if you can't visualize it, you can't do it. Mm-hmm. So if you got to get specific with it. Measurable, you know, achievable is an important one. You know, does it make sense to you? Mm-hmm. If it makes sense to you, and you know that you understand what it takes to accomplish that part, then what's it going to hurt? Is it relevant? That's part of the vision too. You know, think about how that fits into your bigger mission here. Does it? If it does, good. Time bound, is it something that you can get done tomorrow or next week or within the next month? If it is, what's it going to hurt to go out there and do it? Unless it's going to break the bank, go out there and take action. Run it through the framework. It doesn't, all you got to do is just ask yourself that quick question about every single one of those categories of the SMART framework. That's why they made it, because not only is it easy to understand, but it's duplicatable. You can train the lowest common denominator on it, and it works. So there are many ways to do it. But if you can run it through that and it makes sense, go take action, get her done. If it doesn't work, course correct, figure out a new one, run through the same framework, and go out there and try again.
Right. And that's that resiliency that we talk about, right? And that, again, that reinforces that warrior ethos and how each one of us has that ability. You know, there's this idea of the zone of resiliency, right? So if you set a goal that's not realistic, I mean, how many times I can say in my own life where I set a goal and I didn't run it through the framework, and then I got disappointed. So then there's this dip underneath the zone of resiliency, and then you dip into some depression, right? It's going to happen because you're disappointed in the fact that you didn't hit your target goal. And so getting out of that dip and getting back into the zone of resiliency, in order to avoid it, you have to run it through the framework in a way that the goal is something that isn't too big. For example, I was working with a client and a couple, and, you know, it was a very simple goal. Like, hey, I asked them how many nights they wanted to eat dinner with each other every night because they wanted the connection. And, you know, initially they said, we're going to eat 3 times a night. Well, right now your baseline is 0. And so to say you're going to eat 3 times, you might set yourself up for failure. And then that's going to be another problem or another failure. And then now that becomes that self-defeating prophecy that works against me even wanting to set any goals in my life. And so it's like, no, let's back up. And maybe we say one day that's realistic. And then we can really hone in and talk about that one experience that you had. build some momentum. And then if the next week you want to bump it up to 2, that's fine. But like, let's start at something that we know we can hit and that's manageable so we can get this snowball going, right? I love Dave Ramsey. He talks about the snowball method, right? And some people like the avalanche method, but it's like in goal setting, sometimes you got to get those small wins. And small wins are important because it's a psychological game. People really don't understand how big of an impact having small wins are, especially when you might have a defectiveness schema again. And so get those small wins. That's one strategy you can use.
And listen, if you try to tackle too many things at one time, no one can multitask. You might be really, really good at prioritizing.
Okay.
But multitasking is not something I don't give a doggone what anybody thinks they can do. You cannot multitask. You're going to screw something up. That's just how it goes. But take small chunks. And those are the wins that you're talking about. As you execute those small chunks, get them done. And don't ever look at failure as a part of the equation. If it didn't work out, there's an opportunity there. And analyze that opportunity and figure out what went wrong. There's probably something that still went right. And if you're not dead or broke, then you still have the opportunity to course correct. So, somebody might have to drag you out by your doggone LBV, but you should still pick up your weapon and keep on shooting and keep on going towards your goals. There ain't nothing wrong with that.
There you go.
Or your ethos that you keep on talking about. We said it in the first call. I will always place my mission first. That's your goal. I will never accept defeat. I'm not going to quit. And then I'll never quit, and I'll never leave a fallen comrade. And by the way, if these are your goals, if you quit, then you're leaving yourself. Don't give up on yourself. Because you know what? Everyone around you will at one point give up on you, even if they don't mean to. So if you give up on yourself, you are the only you. You got to love you. Take care of you. If these are your goals, they're important. I don't give a doggone if they're not important to somebody else. They are to you because you're thinking about it. Figure out if you can do it and go take action.
Right. No, that's good, man. I got a question for you, man. I put it in the chat box. I didn't hit send though. Can I ask you a question?
You can say whatever you want.
So let's try this real quick. I wanted to say, what's the most challenging goal you've achieved up to this point? And if you could tell us, like, well, maybe what are some of the barriers and how you overcame it, man? And I'll answer the same question.
Honestly, it's starting this business.
Okay.
It took me, it was actually about 4 years since since the time that I came up with the idea. I always needed to make sure there was regular income, or maybe we didn't have enough money saved up, or it's not the right time because A, B, C, D, and E. But life happens. And honestly speaking, when you want something and it's the way forward is crystal clear for you, and you can eliminate all the barriers that are keeping you from moving forward. It took me a long time to eliminate those barriers.
Yeah.
But at the end of the day, the only barrier that I had was me.
That's good.
And once I conquered that, then the rest, honestly, it's fun. Because none of these jobs that I've had since I've retired from the military are nearly as challenging as the military was. This that I'm doing right now, yeah, there are so many good ideas out there, but there are also so many different ways to tackle this and so many ways that you can win and lose along the way. It's just been so much fun. And I have had my significant share of failures along the way. But, when I help somebody and they tell me, thank you, there's no bigger reward. At the end of it, I helped somebody achieve whatever outcome they were looking to be, whether it was just leadership training, or maybe it was creating a system of communication so that they could focus on their people and the overall mission. and not have to worry about tracking all of this ugly data. Nobody likes tracking data. Some people do, and not me. Anyway, but honestly speaking, it was taking action and leaving my last place of employment to be employed on my own. And, this is going to grow, man. And when it is, I'm not going to be just helping people. I'm going to be helping people that are out there doing the helping people. And I have that vision very clearly in my mind. And so when I get there, not if, but when, I'm going to be blessing people's businesses all over the country and probably the world.
And the world, not probably.
Right.
So the language, man, is so powerful, man. I would say for me, maybe the most challenging goal would have been honestly getting my master's degree, which was kind of the pinnacle, if you will, of being able to even start this journey that I'm on now as a therapist. Finishing that degree, without it, I wouldn't be able to do the work that I'm doing. And I remember many times where, we would have a 15-page paper due in one class, and another one we had a 17-page paper due, whatever, all these pages of work to do. And I wasn't always confident in my writing. And so once I got into graduate school and all you have is papers to do, that self-defeating mindset comes up, and you really got to work through that. And it really took for me to, write down. I literally, on the back of my notebook, I took every assignment that was due, and I wrote it as if it was a hill that I had to climb. And I played this little mind game with myself that I turned it into an exercise, right? Because I've been an athlete my whole life. And so I looked at that and I said, I got to climb this hill. And once I get over it, I told myself, once I get over these harder papers, these more difficult ones, it's downhill from there. And I did a lot of self-talk while I was working through that. And I just can remember those moments of, getting up that hill. And I think, again, the setbacks, they were me. The inner me is the enemy. You hear yourself, oh, I'm not going to get it done. I might as well there was times where I only did 10 pages. I have 5 pages left. And I had to text I missed the deadline. So I text the professor and say, look, I'm not going to get this done in time. You're probably going to mark me down. And it, like, almost immediately in the morning, I would wake up, go to my email, and they'd be like, Brown, get it done. Stop making excuses. You know where you're going. Like, you know where you're going. Why are you making excuses? Get it done by this time. And just pushing forward. And I think that's the cool thing about goal setting. It's like, you think about the social part of the wellness wheel, where you have this tribe, right? This tribe of people that believe in you, and they push you forward, and they support your goals. They support your vision. They're not knocking your goals. They're not tearing you down, because, I'm the first man in my family to graduate with a degree, man. And it wasn't easy. It wasn't easy at all, man. And even, just possessing it, if you will, is also a challenge, right? Because then you got to do these CEUs. You have to do all these things to maintain it. It's like, so I would say for me, that was definitely the most challenging thing.
Andy Stanley, he's a preacher. His dad was a preacher. They're both popular people. But I watched a video of his one time where he gave a talk on, it was actually decision making.
Mm-hmm.
And, when the difference between right and wrong, but, there's kind of a correlation here. And so I'm going to go down this path for just a second, but it matches. When you make the right decision, you're going to keep on making the right decisions. But say that's the right, and you take a left and you start making those wrong decisions.
Oh,
don't do it alone. Get a community behind you, because once you make one, it's like a spiral effect in the wrong direction. You're going to keep on making those left turns. Well, Derek, you said something very amazing just now. What made me get to the point in my business that I am now is not because I figured it all out. It's because I created, just by finding good people, a small community of other people that care about what I'm doing and that I care about what they're doing. And, you know, we came together and we just started talking about things. And when you have confidants in your corner, you'll realize very quickly that sometimes the opinions and ideas that you've had for so long that have been holding you back from success, and you didn't even know they were holding you back from success, have the ability to change drastically when you collaborate and get other people involved, because you can get stuck in one area and not move and not realize that you're stuck in that area and not move. But when you grab somebody else and say, I'm stuck and I can't doggone move.
That's right.
They're going to say, well, your left foot has gum on the bottom of it and you haven't taken the shoe off. Wow. Thank you. And then you start moving forward.
Right. Right.
That was probably a really weird analogy, but I had to say it, man.
No, it's all good. No, it was good. That was good. I'm rolling with it. No, man, that's awesome, man. You know what? That's what, you know, here at the Warrior Leadership Podcast, man, that's what we're doing, man. This intersection between coaching and therapy, man. It's that synergy that is naturally going to come from two very passionate, driven individuals that, you know, will win at all costs. You know, it's interesting because in this life, even when you feel like you've lost, you realize that feeling like I lost doesn't really mean I lost, because loss is not necessarily a feeling, it's a thought. And so if you have that mindset of a winner, regardless, you know, it goes back to this. It's this simple, you know, all things work together for the good, for those that love the Lord and are called according to his purpose. And whatever mantra and whatever you believe in, understand that, like, even Shakespeare said it, these were the best of times, these were the worst of times. And so when you have a mindset and you understand that no matter how bad it is, right? We're coming to this podcast, we're not necessarily telling you every single thing that's happening in our life, but in reality, we know that something is going on in the background of our lives. There's always a storm brewing somewhere, but the resolve that you show in the face of that pain is what develops that, I would say, that spiritual muscle that helps you work your way around that wellness wheel. And as you start to hit every aspect of it, your environment change, you start to seek more knowledge. The intellect is challenged in so many different ways. It's like I was earlier, you know, rereading it was like a comic strip, and it was talking about the allegory of the cave, right? And here it is, you know, when the coach and DB, the therapist, come in here, we grinding and we crawling out of the cave, because you know why? There's a beautiful sunset on the outside of that cave where everybody wants to be stuck. So the people that come into this space, they know that it's something outside of that cave, but you got to establish a goal to get there, JJ, right? You got to establish a goal.
You have to establish a goal, and you have to, gosh, I only have one way to say this in my mind, so I got to be very careful because this is broadcasted all over the web. You have to have the wherewithal, and you have to have the mental toughness to push past everything else, because nothing that you think in your mind when it comes to goals mean anything without that action at the very beginning. You got to plan, but you got to execute. So whatever's keeping you from doing that, I'm going to use your analogy that you gave earlier. When you have the mind of a warrior, and there's nothing that's going to stop you, when you have that clear vision and that plan in your head to go tackle what you're going to tackle, and you're right at the edge of that forest, all of a sudden what happens is that you look down, and everything that was holding you back, you probably feel kind of dumb for, because there's a path right there at your feet that takes you right through that forest.
Yes, sir.
But if you don't take that first step forward, you're not going to find it. You're not going to find it. We just hit 30 minutes. So I'm going to ask you, before I give my closing comments, if you have any closing comments. DB?
Well, I wrote something down earlier that I just want to say real quick. I says, you're either going to be a mega yacht or you're going to be a Titanic, and you're going to run into the iceberg and you're going to sink. So which one are you going to be? And it's a mindset. And when you have that mindset that you're going to be that yacht, that's where we want to be. And so mind over matter.
Thanks, buddy. Well, if this resonates with anybody that's listening, like it, subscribe to it, share it, repost it, make a comment. That's actually more important than all of those things. And keep the conversation going, because we're live now. But the more you comment, the more it'll refresh in your feed and our feed so that other people have an opportunity to see it. So that's how the algorithm works. If it's important to you, say something so it's important to everybody else and they get an opportunity to see it. I don't really have anything else to say, but I tell you what, if I would have been stuck in my thoughts my whole life, I wouldn't be where I am today. You can get caught in that failboat mentality if you want to, but if you really want to succeed, you got to rise above that and just take that first step forward. It doesn't matter how that looks. Keep the end in mind and figure out what that looks like for you. We both help with these things. If there's a huge mental block, you got DB here. If it's just finding the path, that might be me. That's what we're here for. I mean, I know for a doggone fact I don't look pretty on the screen right now, so that's not why I'm doing this. I don't think that's why DB is doing this either. We are here to help. So please reach out to us if you need to. This is JJ Hardy and DB the therapist. Y'all have a wonderful evening.